ChatGPT. and I teach my students how to use ChatGPT. But when I'm in a lecture and I'm telling my students about ChatGPT, I'm like, guys, look, you can either fully rely on ChatGPT and it will give you the general things that, it will give anyone. Or you can get what ChatGPT provides, add it with your intelligence, with your human intelligence, and come up with something special. So, because I am so aware, and even for a lot of organizations right now, for some of the organizations that are really 21st century, they're very forward thinking. I kid you not, in their JDs, you know how in our JDs they're like, you should be proficient in Microsoft Word and all these things. Now the JDs are saying you should know how to make use of AI tools. So if I don't expose my students to AI tools, where are they going to learn these things from?
I'm from a beautiful place, the Pearl of Africa, hailing with a 256. It's in my blood, that's a gem where the mountains rise, with stories untold, the tapestry of cultures unfolding, so vibrant and bold, a symphony of stars, a celestial light, the drums beating, echoing through the night, just like a beacon of light, a reflection that's coming up from the Nile. I'm flowing straight into the heart of Africa with timeless stories untold. What's up, Doug?
3, 2, 1, let's go.
Let's go. Welcome once again to the Ugandan Boy Talk Show, on the podcast where I bring your celebrities, regular people, the famous people, anybody out there that wants to come on here and have a conversation, talk about life, talk about a lot of different things. And today I'm very honored to have Irene Mutuzo on the podcast. Irene, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure. I am not a celebrity. No, am I famous? So I would like to think that I'm a regular person. So who am I to have this honor?
That's why we have all the categories. So everybody who comes here, wherever you fall in that one. So I have a category for everybody. It's inclusive. So, I mean, to some people, you might be famous. To some people, I know there's people out there looking up to you for the work you do, everything you do that we're going to talk about today. But to start us off, I'll say Irene is a lecturer and a PhD fellow at Makerere University, a digital usability context consultant, and a board member at Lantana. Is it
Lantern Meat Foundation?
Lantern Meat, yeah. And she's a poet and a lover of God. I think I would say I knew you through the poetry side, or you knew me through the poetry side. It's kind of crazy. How did you get to know about the Ugandan Boy Talk Show?
Okay, I've been seeing it around. I like Twitter with the drama and all. Not the drama much, but some of the content pretty much resonates. So I think I've seen some of your content. A couple of my friends have been, on your podcast. Selfishly, I look out for the poets. I do know Wake, Kabera have been on the podcast. Sam Chimera, who's an amazing singer and someone that I know has been on the podcast. So yeah, I always look forward to some of those conversations. So I've watched some of the podcasts and kudos to what you're doing. I think it's awesome.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I really love to ask people that question because I want to know how far it goes, how like the information. Sometimes when we are creating content, we don't know how far our content goes. And there's a lot of people who have been disappointed thinking that the world is not hearing them. But I like to encourage people on that very note that just put out your content. It's going to be one day. Somebody's going to see it. Somebody's going to be inspired. And you and I didn't know each other until you landed on my content. It's like, oh, that's really cool. And I appreciate that you reached out to talk to me and wanting to be on the podcast. I really love that when people reach out to wanting to be on the podcast because I know they've seen the work and they have appreciated it and they want to be a part of it. Other than, I mean, sometimes I like to ask people to come be on my podcast, but asking somebody will come with different intentions or will not even want to be there. But when somebody asks to be there, they want to be there and they want to say something to the world. So I'm excited to have you here and we're going to have a great conversation. And I think you said you've seen a few of your friends on this podcast I did with Kabera Angel
Yeah.
She was a guest on this podcast. I hosted Wake 256, but this was back in when I was still doing, I wasn't doing in the studio. But I need to have Wake back on the podcast to do another one because I think it's been like a year ago.
You need to. He's, Wake is a good friend of mine, and why I'm particularly excited to be on the podcast is just to talk about poetry. A lot of people
Mhm.
don't. I feel like poetry is just beginning to be appreciated. So every single chance I get to talk about it, to encourage the young poets out there, I do. And Wake and I started poetry. I think I've known Wake for over 10, 15 years.
I was talking to Angel and I told her, oh, yeah, somebody reached out to me, Irene, and I tell her your name. She's like, yeah, she's like the founder of poetry in Uganda.
I'm not. Oh, how sweet, Cabra. But I'm not the founder.
She told me, now that one is like the source of poetry. Yeah, you're going to have a good conversation.
I'm humbled. I'm humbled. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you say 10 years, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
How, since we're already at poetry, I'll start with that. Like, how do you get into poetry? How was your journey into getting this thing of poetry?
Yeah. So I've always loved to write ever since I was as much younger. And then when I got to my A level, I happened to do history, economics, literature, and German. Of course, in my interaction with literature, the poetry there was a little bit complex. Be thou, the complicated English. But I remember this one time when a group of poets came to my school, then the Bisusa Girls School, from the Lanta Meet of Poets, where I do a bit of mentoring and building the poetry side. And the way they presented the poetry was just so different, yeah. The passion, the clarity in understanding the pieces, sort of a different way from what I had encountered in my literature classes. Not that I underplay my literature classes, they did play a lot. But as I've grown up in the poetry space, I believe it's important and key to put content out there that people understand, that resonates with people, and the way they performed, the emotions that they had, the subject matters that they talked about. I was like, you know what, this is really, really cool. So, then I started getting involved in the poetry, getting more content. Then I particularly came across a group of poets, this time a Christian poets called P4CM. So if you've heard of Genetics or Ezekiel, those kinds of poets came from that group. And I was particularly inspired by how they were using poetry to share the gospel. And then I started to write, then I started to perform at church. My first performance happened very randomly. Back then, we used to have some church, then KPC, now it's called Watoto. We used to have some events called Guntus. So I remember I'd written a piece for a friend of mine and I'd performed it for her. Then she knew a friend of hers who, Ogutu, who was working for Pa FM then. And then she asked me to perform for Ogutu when we were walking from the event. And he was like, oh my God, this is so cool. You should come and perform at the Pa FM movie night. So just like that, I had the opportunity to perform, first big, you could say, stage, quite scary. Then my people didn't know my name. So the MC then, who was Ronnie Abasan, who happens to be, such a good friend of mine and mentor, he introduced me by my nickname, which is Noisy. So then the Noisy name stuck. So when people saw that first performance, I kept being called back for other performances. But I was also performing at the Lantern Meet of Poets. We used to have shows at the National Theatre, going in for what we call circles, where you take your work, and at times it would be shredded or thrown out. And that's how the poetry journey began in a nutshell.
It's amazing to listen to your journey and how you got to where you are, because I like to ask people their journey, because most people, when they look up to you, like I said in the beginning, there might be somebody out there looking up to you because, oh my God, how does she do that? And they don't know that you have this journey behind you where you came from to get to where you are. And sometimes when I get an opportunity to speak to people like you, I like to ask for their journey. So somebody who is listening, they'll be able to track with it. Like, this is where I'm at. And this is what Irene went through to get to here. So I'm at this point. And whatever you went through, if they're going through the same thing, they'll be able to overcome that on how you overcome it through your story. So I really appreciate when you say that. And that comes with an honor of you were awarded the Spoken Word Act winner on an award. My podcast has been lucky to win an award too
Nice.
for Podcast Influencer of the Year, and it's a good feeling. So I wanted to know about how was the feeling for you, first of all, getting nominated and going on to win the Spoken Word Act winner.
Okay. Let me first of all start with my most recent nomination, which was an absolute. A couple of my friends say that I don't believe in myself. I think a bit of me is because I'm a perfectionist. So when I get nominated, I'm like, what? So I recently got nominated for Best Spoken Word Artist and Best Storyteller Award at the Africa Voice EPMVA Africa Podcast and Voice Awards, which is these awards that recognize people that are doing podcast work like yourselves, storytellers, voiceover artists, poets like myself across Africa. And I remember looking at that nominee list, and that nominee list has people I look up to. Hello, Ivy Quick. So I was like, what? So every time I get a nomination, I'm first of all like I'm always so shocked, but also truly humbled that maybe, God is crafting my art and talent to be better and better and influence more lives. So that, and it being an Africa award, which I'm waiting, I'm still waiting for the results, but I've been really, really humbled. That happened, this year. And then when I won that award, which was Vine Awards, I was actually the first recipient of that particular award. So there's been, other artists. Wake, got the award, I think, last 2 years. So it was humbling. It was scary, first of all, having to go through the nominations, having to ask your friends to vote you, not knowing whether they'll vote you, putting the word out there on your socials, not knowing whether people are really interested in your work. But I think it's those processes that make me realize that actually people are interested in my work. Because every time I put, I'm like, hi guys, I've been nominated. Then all of a sudden, people don't really comment on their content sometimes, but people comment on a lot of that stuff. So it's exciting, it's scary. Yes, it's an amazing feeling. Yeah, I must say. Even when I do not win, I am still humbled that I get to be nominated.
No, that's the same feeling I had when I got nominated the first time, because I just said my podcast. I'm like, who am I? Like this, I don't even have a lot of people listening to me. I don't really have the best equipment. I don't really have this, but somebody out there noticed me and they're like, oh, let's nominate. And we won. And then the second one, I think the second one was my favorite. I mean, all of them, I like them, but what you just said, looking at the list of nominees that I had on there with like podcasts in Uganda, there are these people who do a lot of work. I look up to them. They have good, they put up all good work. And to come up on that nomination list, it was just amazing and just affirming that you're on the right track, you're doing the right thing. And winning it was just extra because I did not see that coming. But I appreciate. I know the feeling of asking people to vote for you. Banange, vote for me. Banange, today vote again. That thing is stressful. It is stressful. I don't want to go through.
And they're friends of mine together with my husband. So like when we got like the nomination for the APM so I come home, I'm like, hey, I've been nominated. And it's like, okay, what's your competition like? So we go to everyone's like Instagram page to see the work they're doing. And my God, I was like, okay, I really need to pull up my shoes. But also for me, those
Yeah.
moments are a wake up call from God, not to take the talent and the art I have, to take it seriously, like not to just, let it. Yeah. So I think this year, particularly this year, God has been showing me that I need to use the poetry gift a lot more. Yeah. So it's been a ringing bell.
Speaking about doing poetry a lot more, I've just seen your recent poetry with Wake 256 about Kira Motors.
Yeah.
How is it
Oh, I
like
love
working
that
with
piece.
Wake? And
Babe,
it's pretty
I
good.
love it.
Just walk us through the behind the scenes and how it was to work with him on that piece.
So I think I've worked with Wake on over 10 pieces, both off stage,
Okay.
on stage. But this piece, and because we've worked together a lot, we sort of have know each other's strengths, and play off that each other. And we start by writing through a WhatsApp call. It's that simple. So
Mm-hmm.
what are you thinking about this? What are you thinking about that? Then we come up with something over Google Drive and we piece up something, then we meet and then we keep refining it. Yeah. So I remember that particular piece. I wanted to use vroom vroom, but I couldn't use vroom vroom because electric cars don't make noise. So that's
Yeah.
how we ended up with a beep beep. But I absolutely love that piece. One of the that we've done many pieces. So you have your really really nice pieces, and uh, that's one of the really really nice pieces. Yeah, and it's always a pleasure working with Wake.
I really enjoyed it. It was fun to watch, and hearing Wake's side where he spoke in Lusoga, that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
cool too.
Now that's Wake's strength.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Wake, I've seen Wake in the poetry industry. I think he's worked with a lot of people. I like to see that. I like when people collaborate. One of the saying I like to say on the podcast is collaboration over competitions, where instead of competing with another person, let's work together
Yeah,
to put out a piece. Like you and Wake came together and put out that Kira model. It was awesome.
yeah,
But like if we have that selfish mind, I want to be better than this person, we always like, it's not growing the
yeah,
industry. But when we collaborate, we like uplifting each other.
yeah.
Have you done anything with Angel, or do you have
I
anything?
want to do something with Angel, and we are going to do something
Okay.
very soon. Yeah. I like to say that I sing a little, but not as well as Angel. Yeah, and I do. Yes, I do like how she pieces music and poetry together. So definitely,
Mhm,
I want to
mhm.
do a piece with her. I think she's amazing. The stages that she's been on, and like you said, I mean, I feel like for me it's not about the competition. I feel like every poet in the industry has a unique way they perform,
Mhm.
a unique languages they use, how they express themselves, and it will resonate with different audiences, right? And it's amazing to see how much the poetry industry is growing. And I remember, back in January, February, I had the opportunity to perform at an event that was organized by the International Trade Center and World Trade Organization, and in Abu Dhabi, and it just opened my eyes to your poetry is actually big. Poetry can be this big. I mean, what are the odds that a Ugandan girl, Ugandan boy, a Ugandan girl can be, picked out of a pool of so many poets to go and perform at this high level event. So being able to be on that international stage as a poet, as a Ugandan, just opened my eyes that, what, there's so much poetry can do and the industry. I feel like that back then, 15 years ago, the industry was just like, we're just trying to figure it out,
Mhm.
trying to, let people appreciate it, doing a lot of Kabir and Wake like to say being paid through exposure. So being
Yeah.
paid a lot through exposure, but now we're at a stage where someone can ask you for their rate. We're at the stage where you can get flown out to perform at an international stage, and for me, that just shows that I mean, for the young poets coming, uh, keep at it, because 5 years down the road, it's going to be amazing. Yeah.
That was going to be my next question about if for the young poets that are coming up, what you can say. But looking up to you, and you just said it, like sometimes we do these things and we don't see the payoff right away, but if you keep doing it, it's going to pay off. It's not like, because if you
Yeah.
quit without seeing it, you never know how far you would have gone. But this poet thing, I know it's just growing. The poetry industry is growing in Uganda, but you've said it, like it can take you outside the country. Who are you, a Ugandan girl, to go out perform outside the countries and benefit from that and doing something that you love? But on that, what are some of the challenges you think that the poetry industry is facing in Uganda right now? I know Angel was here and talking about some of our own experiences dealing with people who don't want to pay you, or people who use you for that because they just think poetry is just for like services. In your own opinion, where you see the Ugandan poetry industry, like how is the challenges that you guys still have?
I would say mentorship. Yeah, mentorship. I try to mentor as many poets as I can, as I normally can, or have the opportunity to share. And that's why I like these platforms, because I believe they allow me to speak a lot more into the younger generation that is coming, because I truly believe in this art. And one of the things that we do at the Lantern Mead Foundation is we still have poetry circles. I mean, those poetry circles were very, very harsh. They still are harsh. Like you'd spend 5 nights writing a poem, and you take it there, and people critique it, and and it pushes you to get better. So younger poets tapping into those spaces where they can share their work, get advice from senior poets, or people that can, even yourself, because at the end of the day, you are also meant to consume the poetry, right? Like the way you watched the beep beep and it resonated with you. So I can write my piece and share it with you, and you can give me feedback. So being able to get that feedback, being able to get that mentorship, I think both on the side of the mentors, but also on the side of the younger poets, there's that deliberate need to have mentorship spaces. Then I would say also, I don't want to call it exposure, but opportunity for these poets to present their work, right? And a lot of times you see that there are endless opportunities for, say, musicians, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you are maybe on a board and you're asked, okay, how would you want to creatively share this message, and you bring out, the idea of poetry, at times, because a lot of people don't understand it and have not had the opportunity to interact with it, they'll quickly shun it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of times and I remember there's a piece that we did, and we literally had to go into a boardroom and pitch. Like we were up against, I think, a dance troupe. And I'm glad we finally won. But we literally had to pitch. We had to showcase the work that we have done. And it's just that some of the people were against the whole poetry thing in the room. It's because they had never seen it. They didn't know what it would look like, and for a lot of us, it's like the kind of poetry you had in school, AIDS,
Mm-hmm.
school, that kind of, yeah. So there isn't that, exposure. Then, of course, like the way you have labels supporting, musicians, labels supporting fashion artists. It would be nice to also have labels signing on poets, supporting them to grow, giving them advice, right? Yeah, because when you look at other industries, like the Nigerian industry, the Nigerian poetry industry, like you look at their videos and you're like, oh my God, you look at the deals they're getting, like it needs that extra extra push from the industry in general. Then I would say also, and I say we fall trap into this because I've also been, I've also sort of fallen in trap before. You look at this poet and you really like how they sound, or you like their their style, so you try to mimic them and you do not find your unique voice or your unique sound. And I remember when I was younger, the poets that I looked up to, and I tried to write content like them, look like them. But it's when I've gotten older that I've realized that, okay, this is who I am. These are the messages I like to talk about. This is what I'm passionate about. This is how I like to express myself. And I found that my performance and my writing is way better than when I was trying to be someone else. So
Yeah.
also encouraging poets to find who they are, because when you find who you are, you also create value. Yeah.
Mhm.
People pay for your uniqueness. They don't pay if they want you to sound like the other person. They would rather pay the other person.
Exactly.
And if they don't have the budget for that person, they'll come to you because, oh, you kind of sound like this person, but you're low budget, you know. So you get what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So I think, if you want to get in the big bucks, you have to have that uniqueness and that value that you bring on the table, and constantly growing, constantly working, constantly putting yourself out there, working with people. And yeah, just knowing who you are and why you're doing it.
No, I really like your answer very well and the way you articulated it, because one of the things that I picked up when you said the poetry industry in Uganda should also have like record labels, like how they have like in music and support. There's a lot of talent in
Yeah.
Uganda. It's not only music. We can give a lot of talent from Uganda, but I think a lot of talent dies in Uganda because it doesn't have the support. And I've been honored to have a lot of poets on my podcast, and you listen to them, you see their work, and it's really, really good work. But like again, you said, somebody has really good work, but then he doesn't have enough money to do a really good video to put his work out there. And they need a hand and support in those and helping them to know like, and some people quit because they have the talent, but they can't push their talent. And then the talent just dies,
Yeah.
which it would have benefited the
And
country.
the talent doesn't pay.
Yeah, exactly. All that. But no, it's amazing to see. But I also feel like you being in that position has also opened a lot of opportunities for you. Recently, you were a moderator at the Human Rights and Artificial Intelligence Governance in Uganda. How did that go? And getting the opportunity to be there.
Well, I like to tell people I think I have dual lives. So there's this life of me and as an artist and a poet. Then there's this serious life, and I love both my lives. I would not trade them for anything. Yeah. So in my other life, you'd like to call it a 9 to 5, but yeah, I don't call it a 9 to 5 because I'm passionate about it. I am an assistant lecturer at Makerere University. I am currently pursuing my PhD. It's merging the fields of psychology and technology. I'm very passionate about tech. I think because a lot of my background has been around tech work, the companies I've worked for. So being involved in building digital strategies, marketing strategies, I've been involved in testing, consumer analysis, around different types of technology, from recruitment tools, edutech, blockchain. Recently, I'm now, getting my feet into AI. And I guess because of that work that I've done, and also been doing a bit of consultancy here and there, that's how I got to moderate. I've spoken a lot about tech in the tech space, about blockchain, about AI, about edutech. So I guess that's how I got there, because I'm very active in that space. I'm very passionate about it. I believe that tech is great, but at the end of the day, it's great for the people who use it. And my background is actually psychology. I'm not a, I know a little bit of coding, little. Yeah, and I understand the ins and outs of how to build systems and all those things. But my strength is more around, human-centered approaches to designing systems and apps and all these things. So my niche or my goal is to merge psychological aspects with what aspects are those that push people to use technology or push them to abandon that technology. Because you can have great technology, but people won't use it because either their culture doesn't agree with it, or they don't have the gadgets, or their friend is not using the app, so they won't use the app. So understanding those nuances before you introduce a type of technology is really, really critical. So that's my other life that I
So
like.
I have two questions to ask you
Yeah.
from that other life that you like. And one of the questions, I actually didn't have this
Yeah.
written down or anything. It's just in my head. And when you talked about AI, there's a lot of people who have different opinions to AI. People in America will look at it differently. People will say, okay, it's affecting this and this and this. In your own opinion, what do you think about AI? Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing?
I think AI is a good thing in relation to how you use it. Yeah. So I happen to be in academia, right? And when you speak to a lot of my colleagues, AI and ChatGPT, because everyone knows
Yeah.
ChatGPT, they're like, what? No, that students shouldn't
Chat,
even be
Chat
touching
GPT is a
it.
lifesaver
But
for
I'm
college
like, you know
students.
what? I like ChatGPT, and I teach my students how to use ChatGPT. But when I'm in a lecture and I'm telling my students about ChatGPT, I'm like, guys, look, you can either fully rely on ChatGPT and it will give you the general things that it would give anyone, or you can get what ChatGPT provides, add it with your intelligence, with your human intelligence, and come up with something special. So, because I am so aware, and even for a lot of organizations right now, for some of the organizations that are really 21st century, they're very forward thinking. I kid you not, in their JDs, you know how in our JDs they're like, you should be proficient in Microsoft Word and all these things. Now the JDs are saying you should know how to make use of AI tools. So if I don't expose my students to AI tools, where are they going to learn these things from? And as an academia and as a lecturer, I need to expose my students to use these tools the right way. So I'm like, these tools are great. You need to know about them. This is how you use them the right way. But can you use them ethically?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my focus is not no go zone. Don't use ChatGPT at all. And I mean, me being me, if you send me an essay with ChatGPT, I know how to figure it out that your work was 100% ChatGPT. So, yeah. So my students know that from the get-go. And for me, it's just teaching them like everything you have, right? Your phone, social media, all these things can be good, but are you using them the right way?
Yeah. When I was in college, I didn't know about plagiarism, and I was writing a research paper, and just I just like that was my first year in college, and I just plagiarized the whole thing. And at the end of it, it was like the end of it. My professor wrote down, "I would have fined you, but I'm gonna ask you to redo this paper." I was like, "How did he find it out?" And this I didn't use ChatGPT at that time. It was basically just copying and paste when we are doing just a copy and paste. It wasn't like ChatGPT because either it wasn't there by then or we didn't have enough knowledge about it at the time. But no, that's been
probably was using a plagiarism tool because they were turn it in. But also, I think if you're a deliberate teacher, I like to call myself a teacher. You know your students. You know
exactly.
the style that your students write in. Yeah. So you can tell that, this student didn't write this paper. Yeah.
No, I think that's why.
You
Actually,
can
I think
tell,
that's how they
yeah.
got me because I think my teacher knew my vocabulary, like what the words. He knows the words I can come up with and the words. So if he sees a word like Bonnie usually doesn't use this word, how did he come up with? But that's always like it's a question behind me when now ChatGPT like how do is the lecturers or professors or people find out if you use ChatGPT? But it might be your guys' trick, and unless you want to tell us the trick that
there
you
are
guys
tools that No, there are tools because there's tools like No Chat GPT, Quillbot, Grammarly. Like you can just take the entire text there
Yeah.
and you're able to run it through and it will tell you this paper is 100% AI generated or not AI generated. And also, and it's on the onus of us, the guys in academia, to know these things. So yeah, right now I'm working on a project with the Worldwide Universities Network where we're actually sort of sharing this knowledge with academics, ethically using AI and also supporting them with that information. Because sometimes if you're not tapped into these spaces, you don't really know. So what tools are out there to support you as a teacher, on how to catch a student who's used ChatGPT. Yeah.
Well, yeah, teachers are fighting and students are fighting. Everybody is just trying to become
Yeah.
smarter, and then the teachers show you they're smarter, and then the students try to be smart, and then teachers move another level. So it's fun. I'm glad I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm glad
Yeah.
I'm done with college because I hated writing papers and all that. But that's amazing.
Why do you hate writing papers?
It's just playing with my
I like
brain.
writing papers.
No, just playing with my brains. Like somebody tells you to write 14 pages single spaced. I'm like, what am I gonna get all these words? Like it's just torture. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's cool to listen to other life of the academia and talking about artificial intelligence because that's the question I had. Because people have different opinions about artificial intelligence, like it's affecting this, it's taking out this. But I feel like it's a simplified work. Like just like you said, if you use it in the right way, it makes a lot of things like a lot easier. But it could also be bad in some way or the other. But
Yeah, and I like to say AI is like Google on steroids, right? Because like like the professors from my parents' ages,
yeah,
like those guys to come up with a dissertation, they would have to go into an entire library
yeah.
and read word for word. But then Google came in and they're able to get these papers. Now, I feel like if you look at it that way, you realize that it's something that's sort of here to stay. Yeah. And like the way we are now using Google for almost everything, when you feel sick, you go and Google, you go and it's just that now ChatGPT and all these AI tools are able to give you more information much faster. So it's like, I like to call it like an extension of sorts of Google of sorts. Yeah.
I think that's awesome, and I'm glad we talked about that because it's something actually I had in my head to just talk about on the podcast. And I'm glad I had you here to talk about that. But there's two segments that I really like, not segments, but things I wanted to talk about as we wrap this up. I know we had issues at the beginning of the recording that listeners you won't know about, but we're thankful that we're able to bring you this podcast today because it's been, as believers, we say it's been a work of God behind for us to be here today. So
Amen.
I won't go in details of what and what, but I'll tell you one thing. This recording was supposed to happen earlier this month, and today something else was happening. But I'm glad we're here. And on that very note, I'm gonna talk about God. You're very passionate about God. I love God. I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up in the church, and I gave my life to Christ. I'm a believer. But who does God mean to you, like in your life, in your personal life, and how has the journey been for you? I've seen you share a lot of like scriptures on the on X. It's a way of sharing and appreciating your love for God. But like, just walk us through your love for God and how you got into that.
So for the longest time, I think I've always had a relationship with God. And I could say when you say officially give your life to Christ, like go to the altar, I think it was in my P7, P5, P6, yeah. And my mom, my late mom, God rest her soul, she was a prayer warrior. So like watching her grow, watching her pray, like just always made me look up to her. Like, you know what, I want to have this much belief in God. And for me, God is the foundation of everything I do, period. Like, and there are certain things I will not go for. There are certain opportunities I will say no to. And some of my friends are like, oh my God, you're crazy. But like, it's a conviction from God. Like, I will take whatever I have to God and say, okay, God, I've gotten this opportunity, or God, what do you think about this? Even when it comes down to, relationships back then when I was still trying to find a husband, or my husband finding me. Yeah. I literally prayed. Like, I had this list of the kind of person I want to get married to. And I told God, I would like to get married to someone like this. And I said, this really, when I look back, it was a scary prayer. So I was like, God, if people come in my way and they're not meant to be, find a way for them to live my life very quickly without my heart breaking too much. And yeah, and God saw to it. And then I eventually met my husband. And it's been various moments in my life, the lows, the ups. There's but also my relationship with God has not always been perfect, and I don't want to present a picture like, oh my God, I'm this perfect 100% person. No, I'm not. I believe I'm still a work in progress, and I think my faith was particularly tested when my mom passed, and she passed so abruptly about 3 years ago. And when she was in the hospital, at time you're really praying to God and you're like, God, if you do this for me, and God didn't do it for you. and I was heartbroken. I was mad at God. I think at a certain point, I was like, I don't want to pray. I don't want to go to church. Actually, didn't go to church for about a month or two. But I realized that my healing actually had to come from God. Yeah. So it took little steps, like starting to listen to music and then getting back into, the mood to go to church. Yeah, I would start with like 30 minutes, then get out. And then, I got back into, listening to his word and reading his word and pretty much relying on him for everything. Like, for me, and this goes across everything. How I deal with my family. I'm a firstborn, so I have to deal with my siblings. That young adult stage. Yeah. So I will go and talk to God when I have a fight with my little sister who thinks she knows more than I do. I will tell God, okay, God, help me talk to this child. I don't know what to do. How I relate with people. Like I said, sometimes I'm not perfect. If I feel like I've wronged someone, I'll go back to God. I'm like, okay, God, give me the humility to say sorry to this person. If it's a deal, there's work I've done, even getting into that digital space. I didn't ever think that I would be on panels talking about AI and all these things. But I remember the first work I got into the digital space, I was like, God, I have no idea how to do this work. I have no idea about this technology. Give me the wisdom to speak about it. Give me the wisdom to learn, the humility to learn. And God definitely came through. So for me, a lot of my life and a lot of what I do is informed by God and what people like to call, what is it called? People call it instinct. For me, it's the Holy Spirit. Like, and as I've grown, like, when you're younger and you make a decision and you're not so sure about it, you're like, I'm not so sure about that decision, but you don't really know what it is. Like, as I grow older, like the moment I start feeling that way, I will walk away from something. I will say no to something because it's my answer from God. Yeah. So if this thing is really meant for me, it should give me peace. It should give me joy. Yeah.
No, I think I like that. I like that because 100% that's how I look at things. And even if it's a bad thing, I just look at it like this is what God wanted to be and just see the way forward. And the same way you say that, talk to God about things. I literally just talk to him, God, give me sleep. Njagala kwebaka. Like, I want to sleep. I just literally like say words to him like that and just talking like that, like he's your friend. So I really like that. And every time I get an opportunity to have somebody talk about God and what he has done in their life, I like to use this platform for that. I don't label my platform as like a Christian platform, but I every time I get an opportunity to talk about God on this platform, I'll always use it because I'm welcoming to everybody.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to say that as Christians, we are called to be to be givers and speakers of the word in whatever space that we are in, right?
Right.
So like you won't find a label on my face saying
Yeah.
Christian. Like I have friends from all sorts of diverse.
Exactly.
I also have, I even have friends who are atheists, and we sit down and talk about God. And I understand where they're coming from. I share, and I think that's the beauty about speaking life to people.
Yeah, definitely. I like that, and that's why, because when people see your life, they can see Jesus through your life. They can see Christ through your life, even when you don't
Exactly.
force it on them through your actions. One last part that I'm going to end with is your love for your dad. I saw somewhere you were talking about, and you've mentioned on this podcast about the death of your mom, but how your dad stood in for you and you expressing that love. I think you made a post somewhere about that. I have a daughter, and reading that for me is just I just
Aw.
read it in like my daughter's voice, like if I was the one standing in for her life, and just that's how it hit me personally. Like, just if this was my
Yeah.
daughter writing this, like, how was that for you, and how has your dad been a huge part in your life since your mother's passed?
I like to say that before my mom passed, I was actually much, much closer to my mom and feared my dad. So I would not really talk about things that have hurt me, or I'm angry, or I'm stressed at work with my dad, right? And for a long time, because I'm the firstborn, my parents were a lot harder on me. That with the last born, it's different. They're, hands off. But when my mom passed, I like I found myself building a relationship with my dad, like getting to know him, like know his side, know, like I'd never seen my dad cry. I think the only time I saw my dad cry was when my mom passed and when he was walking me down the aisle. So like for me, my dad was like a macho person, like he's work, ABCD. Have you passed your exams? Yes, like you'd never have conversations with him, in a deep level. And I like how he, I think, quickly understood that we needed him as a dad, but we also still needed a mother figure because, we are three girls and one boy. So he's he's very much a girl's dad.
Mhm.
And, with girls, there's a lot of emotions. This one is stressed because she can't get this. This one is confused about this. And I find that I can have conversations with my dad. I can text my dad and say, what, daddy, work is stressing me today, or this and this happened. When I was going to get married, I texted, I'm like, Dad, I think I found the love of my life. And, we had conversations about marriage and like, sort of what my mom would say. And I like to say that I am blessed that I can have those conversations with my dad.
Mhm.
Because yes, my mom is away, but it doesn't feel so far away because there's someone I can still have those conversations with.
Yeah.
And I will feel heard. He will listen to me. He will give me good advice. Yeah. And he will be there, most importantly. Like, he's the kind of person I will tell, what, I've gotten an accident, and in the next 1 minute he's there. I talk to my dad through the day, I think about 3 times a day.
Mhm.
Yeah. So my husband and my dad usually have competition on who calls me most. Uh, but I'm really a girl's, I'm really my dad's daughter. We talk a lot. We talk every single day. Yeah. If a day goes by and we've spoken once, he'll text me, he's like, "Hi, I haven't heard from you. Are you okay? Is everything okay?" And I find that intentionality very inspiring. Even for me, when I eventually get to be a parent, I want to be that intentional with my children.
And I like that a lot. The way you said it is the same way I wanted to hear. Maybe to all the other parents out there, or dads out there, to just listen to that and stick out to them. Anyway, Irene, I really appreciate sitting down with you and having this conversation with you. It's been amazing. I'm thankful to God that we're able to do it.
Thank
It
you.
looked like we are getting this close to like not being able to do it, but I'm glad that God gave us the
Yeah.
opportunity to be able to do it. I have 3 questions that I ask. These are like short answers. Um,
Yeah.
One question, first one, what's been a life lesson you've learned in life to this point?
Life is made up of seasons. Enjoy the good seasons and ride through the tough seasons. Eventually, yeah, the seasons end. Yeah, they do pass.
That's a good one. The other one, what gets you excited about life?
Relationships.
Yeah.
My family, my friends, my husband, my dad. Yeah, I'm big on relationships. I'm not that big on, the fancy stuff in life,
Yeah.
but my relationships get me excited. Yeah.
The final question is a signature question for the podcast. Who would you like to see on this podcast next as a guest? And you're going to help me get that person on this podcast.
Who? So many. Most of the people I would want to see, you've had them.
Yeah.
So I will need to think a little deeper.
Let's bring Wake back. Let's bring Wake back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please bring Wake back. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Please bring Wake
Let's
back.
do
Yeah.
that.
And when you bring him back, tell him I said hi.
Okay, I will. I will for sure. Irene, thank you very much for being on the podcast. I appreciate your words today, and I'm thankful that you've been here with us today.
All right. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. Yeah. Who am I? The regular person.
Hey there, my name is Bonnie Chibuka, the podcast host of the Uganda Boy Talk Show. Thanks for watching and listening to my podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Also, leave a feedback on this podcast because that's how we grow. Thank you very much and be blessed.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mrs. Irene Mutuzo Sevume, and I've had the pleasure of being hosted on the Ugandan Boy podcast here at Dancesoft Studios. We talked about poetry, obviously. We talked about how I'm navigating the academic world as a young lecturer, AI, digital stuff. We also talked about God, and I can't wait for you guys to check out the episode real soon. I'm excited, and it's been such a pleasure. It's been such a wonderful experience, and yeah, keep subscribing, keep watching the Ugandan Boy podcast.